All right, so we will do a setup for IXL core, and the setup is how you get into the system and start using the system as a new user, and what you require in terms of setting up as an entity. So once you register, the full names, ideally full names of the proprietor or the person doing the registration. The phone number of the organization, however, these details you're able to change once you get to login. You are capable of changing the details that you want to change at any one time. Then one of the key important thing is the entity base. This is like the default country. So remember, this is a multi-country, multi-system that you can use in any country. So it's important to know which country you are basing up the system. The country will determine, of course, the jurisdiction of the entity and where it is based. And then you do your registration. So what happens once you do that? The email that was used to register, you get an email. That means you have to do a verification before you log into the system. Reason why is like any other system, the security is that the person who's doing the registration is core in terms of ensuring their system is registered. So I will quickly check my emails. I should be having an email. And yes, received the email. To verify my email address, you do email verification. Once you do the email verification, then the system leads you on that you finally registered. With registration, now you're met with a window of registration. That is a package you've seen, and therefore you're able to subscribe to any of the packages you have. So there is trial day periods, and you just pick any of the packages. For purposes of the registration, we start with a 5-day trial period. System gives you that is setting up the entity, setting up the entities, and setting up the admin core areas, admin login areas, and with that you're brought into the login area. The login area, we use the email and the password that we used when registering in the initial registration. So it's fidel@moneylife.co.za. And then the password you use to when you're doing the registration, you log in to the system. That's IXL Core. That's the first entity and the first area of login that we get to see when we log into the system. So the system gives us the dashboard. In the dashboard, we're able to see everything on a snap check, on a snap, and see all the things from a 360 view of the system. First major thing in the system or on the system is settings. So everything first has to be set up in the system for the system to function and operate as smoothly as we'd want the system to operate. From this window, we can be able to customize what we want to see in our dashboard. We just come to customize, and from a customization, we're able to click on what we want to see on the dashboard, what we don't want to see on the dashboard, and therefore we're able to set that right from the word go. However, once we are on the dashboard, we are greeted, or we are welcome with a snapshot of everything in the system. We're able to see the invoice overview, the estimates, the proposal overview, and the purchase order overview from a 360 view. We're going to see projects, the invoice that are awaiting payment, that have not received payments, the projects that are in progress, the tasks that we're going to set in the project, and again, we have a summary of all the tasks, all the projects, the reminders, the tickets that we're going to have, announcements that are going through the system, and the latest activities that are run through the system. This is like an audit check on what has run, what is going on within the system. So the first core point in getting started is on settings. So we have our setup here, and from the setup, we're going to have our settings button. From the setup, we go to the settings. Settings allow us to now look at the whole organization as a whole. Remember, IXL CORE is a white label system. It allows us to brand the system as we want. Initially, we were on IXL CORE, but now we can see the name of the company and the entity we've opened. That is Mali Pty. So first setting, initially we now set the general setup. General setup allows us to put a logo of our entity. We have a logo that is light, we have a logo that is dark. The logos are what we're going to use in all our documentation and in the system. So I will choose the logo. I will go ahead and choose and change the logo for Mali. And then I use Mali logo to open. The recommended dimensions are 150 and by 34. Then I choose also the same logo for Mali, although we have the dark and a different kind of logos. The name we registered was Mali Pty Limited. If there's any change you need to change, we can change at that particular point. And then the rest are automated customer settings. Then we're able to save the settings. Once we save the settings and we put in the logo, the logos appear there. Now you can see the name has disappeared. Now we're having the logo in the place of the name. So those are the first key setups to ensure we are customizing our entity accordingly. Once we generate a favicon are the small logos you see here. Like you can see the favicon of IXL CORE, that is what we have. So once you've done a favicon for Mali, we're going to upload that. The second key tab on company information is company information. This is the same, and these are information that will be displayed. Like we have the highlights here. These are information that will be displayed on all company documentation. When you're doing invoices, estimates, your payments, any document we're going to set up, we're going to have all this. So the same information can be repeated, which is Mali Pty Limited. Mali is based at the Circle, Douglas Crow Drive. It's in Durban. It's in KwaZulu-Natal. The country code SA, the zip code is 4420. You can use the same phone number that we used in registration, but this ideally is the phone number for the entity itself. And if there's any VAT number, you also have the same put there. Now, there will be, when you look at this is showing you in a nutshell what will happen on the documentation. On the documentation, you'll have the company name, you'll have the address, you'll have the city and the state, you'll have the code of the company, the country code. So all this data here, this is the outlay we'll have on our documentation. And then we'll have the VAT number. So if you want this documentation or these things to change, you're able to change the settings and put VAT number maybe appear after address and stuff. You're able to change them from here. But this is how they will appear on documentation. After you've done that, you save the settings. So the second setting we are going for, or the third setting we are going for, is localization. Localization is making context of how you want the system or your system to work. So this is a date format. We can change. We have year, month, date, or date, month, year, or depending on where or which country and the format in that particular country, you're able to use any of these localizations. I would leave here month date for us. Time format, because you're going to use a lot of timings in the system, whether you want it in 24 hours or you want it in 12 hours, you're able to do that. IXL is, Mali is within the Johannesburg region in Africa, but we're able to set in whatever region any entity is. So when you're setting up an entity in whichever country, we pick the country and the timing zones for that particular country. This will allow for documentation. This will allow for you to be able to synchronize your timings and when you're sending the documentation. IXL CORE is multilingual, meaning I can change the language of what I want to see. It can be used in any language, so we can be able to change the language and use or set default language as English. Now, remember this is the default language for the system. However, we are able or capable to deal with clients who are in different regions. That means if a client is in a French-speaking zone, as much as the system is defaulted to English, I'm able to set that particular client, their documentation will be in French because I'm dealing with a Francophone-speaking country or Francophone entity. So this allows us to have a default, but the system allows us to go to the nitty-gritty of setting it up for the individual. Here we have the email settings. This is what the system will use to send out emails. The system will come with IXL CORE as default when you are putting it up. But here we're able now to change and set up to the different entities that we are using. So I'll be able to use malilife.co.za as my SMTP. So you're able to have SMTP, Microsoft O2, Gmail or 2.0, or SendMail. SendMail is a free email sending service, or you can be able to just use mail as a whole. The rest of the information remain the same, but I want to use email info@malilife.co.za. The email is that, and the SMTP username is that, and then the password that we are going to use for the info email as set up by the SMTP, that is set up with your email provider. And once you've done that, you're able to change also the signatures. The signature, meaning we're able to say this is from Mali Life. Instead of IXL CORE, we are going to change the signature to from Mali Pty Limited as our signature. These come standard or they come default, but you're able to change. Once that is there, you can save the settings to change that. Once they're acceptable, when settings are updated, you find they're updated. And if the settings are okay, we can do a test email to show that the system now is able to send the emails because the settings are okay. If they're not okay, the system will advise us, or we'll be able to know that we are not able to change or we are not able to send. So you can see the system has provided us with an error because of the settings. So this could be either the password I'm using is not correct, or ideally it's mostly likely because it's the same SMTP or where we're getting it from. So you can see I say .co.za. It's supposed to be .za. So if any of this is not correct, we'll be able to know that the system is not able to send that test mail. So until the system sends a test mail, you will not know if every setting is okay. So you keep testing to ensure that your password and everything is in order. Once everything in order, the test mail will be able to be sent. And the system will tell you the test mail has been sent. If not sent, so you see, seems like your SMTP are correct. So if I go to my emails, I'll be able to see that setup email saying your SMTP is correct. If it is not correct, you will still get an email showing you are not set up correctly. So that means our system is set up correctly on our emails. Now we go to the finance section. Finance section is, again, we have the general setting within finance. So these are settings that we use in terms of localization on what we want to see from a finance perspective. So you want to see your separator, like for instance, in South Africa, a separator is a dot instead of a comma. A comma separates. In South Africa, a separator is space. And then when you're separating the thousands, is a comma. So it will be 10 space 00, comma 00. The separator is space instead of the comma. So depending on how the currency is done, you set it up here from a finance perspective. We want to show tax per items. It's important when you're invoicing to show tax per item. There are some items within the same invoice that are not taxable. Some things attract a VAT, some others don't attract. So it's always good to show tax per item. If you say no, you only show the complete tax at the end of everything. So we set tax per item. Then set up to exclude currency symbol from items table, or we can have currency symbol depending on which we picked. Then tax can be set up as default or not default. Whether you want to have the amounts, so these are core, they come standard, it just depends with an entity by entity on what they want to use. The other one is the documentation. This is how you want the invoice to look. So the invoice will come with the invoice prefix, invoice. If you want to change to something else, you can change depending on how the institution wants to have. The next number of invoice. So if it's an entity that has been there for long and they want to continue with the number of invoice from where they left off, we can say they want to start with 1987. So the next invoice that is going to be generated is going to be invoice 1988. This is more so for entities that want to ensure there's consistency with the invoice, so that they don't want to start from invoice number 1. But if it's an entity that has been there that is just setting up, they would say, I just want to see invoice number 1. Then we continue from invoice number 1 as we go. Here you can say the due dates. Due dates is either 30 days or 10 days or 1 day, depending on the entity. There are those entities that have 1 day to set up. These are other settings, so whether you allow staff who can view the invoices, yes or no. So depending on what invoices, when the client is logged on, require client to be logged on to view invoice, you say yes or no. So sometimes once you just send an invoice, the client will get a link of that invoice. He can't open that invoice without logging into the system, because IXL CORE has a client portal where the client can log in. So here we can allow them to just click on the link, see the invoice, and make a payment for the invoice, or we can say yes, they have to log in. But for us, we do a no. Delete invoice allowed only on last invoice. So this is say yes or no. These are just key settings within an organization. So the number format, we can say I want to see a year based. So I see the year 2025, then invoice number 10001. Or I want to see only invoice 001, or I want to see invoice 001 with the month and the year, or 001 and then the year. So that means this invoice will be invoice this, that will be the first prefix, INV as invoice, and then it will take 2025, then 0001, or just invoice 0001, or invoice 001 25, or invoice 0001 August 2025, whichever format you prescribe. Then if there's any change you make, you do the save of the settings. So this is getting started with IXL CORE. Then same with proposals. The system, we are able to generate proposals, is the same thing. How we set up the invoices, we can set up the proposals. It's PRO. If you feel like you need another prefix, you can remove that and change. When is proposal due? After 7 days. That means whenever I send a proposal after 7 days, the client is reminded the proposal is due for a signing or a sign-off. And then we have also how the proposal is aligned on the PDF documentation. So the email, the phone, the country code, and the zip code would appear on that. If there's any change you need to change, then once you've made the change, you save the settings. Same documentation, these are estimates. The system will establish, we're starting from estimate, the next estimate number is 1. If you want to have an estimate with a bigger number, you change that. If you want year-based estimates, or we've seen the same with invoice, you're able to do that, and then you save those settings. Same with credit notes, how they will appear, how they will be numbered. We can be able to change that and save the settings on how we want. Subscriptions. The system has capability of setting up subscriptions on invoice. So we can set up subscriptions. Subscriptions means you are subscribed to a service which you pay on a monthly basis or on a regular basis. The system will be generating the invoice at that interval of subscription on a regular basis as you go on. Then you're able to send the invoice, you're able to make payment, and so after subscription payment is exceeded, then we send the invoice and we also send the receipt once those, or just send the invoice only, or send the receipt only, or do nothing. So you prescribe on what you want to do, and then you save the settings. Payment gateways. Payment gateways, this here is now what you want to use as a payment gateway. The system has quite capability of having different payment gateways that we can use. We can use PayFast. We can use Paystack. We can use Flutterwave, what we call Rave, and we can use M-Pesa and PesaPal as set up in the system. This allows for us to make payments of invoices by the click of a button. That means once we send the link of the invoice, the client clicks on the invoice, he can choose either of the methods to make payment for that invoice, apart from just sending the money to the bank. So whichever payment method we have, whether it's Paystack, once we have activated it, the invoice will have that Paystack. And once we have activated M-Pesa also, we have the information, and PesaPal. These systems, these payment systems are driven by the currency of what you're using. So if you want to use US dollars, ideally you better use PayPal or set up Stripe to do such payments. But because we are using rands and we are using Kenya shillings, we are able to set PesaPal, we are able to set M-Pesa, we can set Flutterwave also, and we can set up Paystack and PayFast to use rands, Kenya shillings to make payments. So that's how we set up our payment gateways. These payment gateways are gotten, once we register with Paystack, we'll be able to get the public keys and the private keys and set up the keys that we need to set up. So these keys are gotten from the various service providers, and then we're able to include the keys to make the payment. Once we continue with customer. This is now how we configure the customer, how we want to see the customer in terms of default country. So when the customer is being set up, what will be the default country? Since we're in South Africa, Mali Pty is in South Africa, we don't need to be inputting where the customer is. We'll just make it default. Once I want a new client, the default country will be South Africa, because Mali Pty is set up in South Africa. So if there's another country you're setting it up, you use that particular country to have that form or that customer entry being filled as default. You have various of other things. Then down here we have what we want the customer to see. We've talked about this system being able to have a portal for the client. So what would I want the customer to see? I want the customer to see the invoice, the estimates, the contracts, all this. I can be able to check if I want them to see the assets, and they're able to see them from their own portal. Any communication with the clients, this is the way they will appear. If you want to change, you're able to use these labels and change that. You're able to put in enabling environment for WhatsApp for the client, and then you save the settings if there's any change you've made. When you go to tasks, tasks are the tasks that we do. So we have a Kanban view of the tasks. So you want to see 50 tasks. When you open the Kanban view, you set, if you want to see 10, more than 10, you're able to change the settings from there. Allow all staff to see the projects. That means whichever project you are included and you want to see the tasks, you're able to say yes on that. If you are allowing you to edit a task, we're able to do that. And the various parameters in how you want the tasks to operate, who would see the tasks, how the timing of the tasks will be operated. Then if you change any of those parameters, you save the settings. Support, ideally, is how we support our clients, how we raise the tickets, the public URL for support, whether you want the the ticket to be public or yes or no, and then how we make support available to our clients. So we're able to see, we receive notification when a client opens a new ticket. When a customer replies to a ticket, we receive notification. If you don't want to receive notification, you say no. We can allow staff members to open tickets to all contacts. That means a client has sent an issue to you on your WhatsApp. You want to open a ticket on behalf of the client, we allow you to do that. We can automatically assign to the first staff the post a reply. So when a ticket comes through from a client, they have related issues, then whoever responds to that ticket is allocated to them. So we can say yes or we can say no, depending on how you want to structure your support department. Then we're able to say that, and maximum ticket attachments are 4. That means you have issues you want to attach. Then if you change any of those settings, you say save. Then leads, how you generate your leads, how you generate clients, how you generate, there's a leads view, a Kanban view of seeing how your leads, how status of lead, once a lead comes through, you want the status to be active. Then if you continue engaging with the lead, you're going to have to set up different parameters. There are different sources of leads. Which one would you want to be preferred? I mean, if I want my Facebook to be the lead, this is the default, but can be changed. But ideally, you can also leave that. And while you're filling in the lead, you'll be able to pick up from where the lead came from. Whenever leads are coming through, you want to use your email address to validate so that you don't have duplicate leads. So if it recognizes an email already existing, it says this lead is already existing, there's no need to have another. So these are key core setups of the systems. And once you set them once, you don't need to be resetting up and setting them over and over again. We have so if there's anything you've changed, therefore the system alerts you, you save before you move to the next. If you don't need to save, of course you cancel it. Google integrations are what we use. So you go to Google, get reCAPTCHA API. We'll use reCAPTCHA in our system so that when somebody is logging in, they're able to tell us if they are ghost or not ghost, or they are human beings, they are real. Google API keys also used for identification of location. The system allows us to identify the client with the location. We're able to do that from a client view. So all this still, we are doing our settings. Pusher.coms, it's also a service that the system is integrated. Once we log into Pusher, we're able to get app ID, we're able to get app key and app secret. Where to get all this is at pusher.com. This allows for push notifications to be able to be received. Normally, when you log into the system can ask you whether to be receiving notifications. These are notifications of alerts that you receive, like a pop-up from your screen. Alert that a project has been allocated to you, an alert like there's an invoice that has been raised, a lead has been allocated to you. So push notifications are set, and these are set up. You get the keys from pusher.com. Once you get the keys, then we're able to save the settings. Like we are able to integrate AI into, and that's OpenAI. And mostly we use OpenAI in handling our tickets. So we're going to have tickets being handled by OpenAI for the general tickets and general responses, and structure a response for particular tickets. So once we set up the providers, that's either OpenAI, ChatGPT, or Publix, or whichever Grok, or whichever provider we see, then we're able to set the prompts and able to assist us in answering clients. So ticket can suggest, or ticket summarization of the problem. So that's how we integrate AI within IXL CORE. The basis is calendar. When you go to other settings, so calendar is, you want to see what view you want to see. You want the default to be month. What is your first day? Some countries' first day is not Sunday. Some countries' first day is a Monday. Some organizations, their first day is a Tuesday. So you're able to set those up. This allows us to see our calendar in the dashboard. What will be shown on the calendar is when you have reminders, it will show. You can say no. If there are tickets, they will be in your dashboard. If there are leads, there are invoices, when the invoices need to be paid, so that you have all these things as briefs on your dashboard, and you're able to see that. So if you change anything, you're able to save the settings again. PDF just speaks of how our documentation will be, if what font we're going to use on the documents, that's on all our documents, our header, the colors that we want to use, the size of the logo that we want to use in our PDF documents, any change we want to do that. We can set up signatures on the PDF, and we can upload the signatures for the institution here, so that every PDF, every invoice or any document, there is a signature that comes out. Then our documents mostly all will be on A4 format. If you need any other format, whether it's a letter, if you want a receipt or proposal to be on a portrait or landscape, you're able to choose that. If you make any changes, you save the settings. Client OTP is just to be able to assist us to enable the client to use one-time passwords to log into the system. So if you want to enable that, we say yes, the client will fill in their details, fill in their numbers. So when they are logging in, they get a one-time password on their phone, and that one-time password allows them to be able to log in to the system. So that OTP would definitely run with ensuring that we've set up our SMS channel, so that the client can able to get an SMS when they're getting that. So we have e-sign up or e-sign. This is to allow us to have documentation signed in the system. We require digital signatures so that the client can receive our proposals or projects and able to sign with that, and able to sign with that signature. The tags, we can set up tags and tag different documents separately. In different documentations, we'll have different tags so that we can cluster them, we can classify them in one way or the other to ensure we have all commands of the documents. System has chat, so we're able to set chat settings, people to see. So you can see we have the settings, a chat button here. This will allow how the chat will be seen, how the history of that chat will be. So for anyone that is online within Mali Pty, we're able to chat within the entire organization here from the chats. So this is allowed on the chats, and if you save. SMS providers, we have different SMS providers, but majorly, so if you have MSG or Twilio, you are able to set only one of them to be active. This is important, will allow customers to get SMS, team to get SMS also. So if you have Twilio settings, you have account, you have authorization token, and the number that we're going to use, then instructions on how to get Twilio, how to get your numbers are here. You're able to get that, and you're able to make it active. So clients will be able to get SMS. And what SMS? The triggers for SMS. So a trigger when invoice is overdue, the client gets an SMS. We send invoice sent to customer, the trigger comes up. Invoice payment has been recorded, the client can be able to say. So we'll be able to set all these SMSs and the triggers that we want to send. So if you don't want to set up any trigger, there is no need to do the SMS, but we can set all the SMS such that when there's a new contract to staff, we trigger an SMS. When there's a reminder that we have to do this to staff, we trigger an SMS. So we create the SMS. The fields, these merge fields allows us to put in the correct settings. That means the first name of the staff. So we can set and say hi, and then use this as the first name of the staff, so that it's dynamic field. So it will pick whoever we are sending. Then we're able to trigger that SMS and remind the staff, please complete a certain task, which is due on certain date. We can say dynamically whatever date we are setting, we set that date to be here. And that, once we are done with that, we save our settings. So anytime there's a reminder that needs to go, the staff will definitely be reminded, but that is after we've set all one of either of these three SMS gateways. This is lead follow-up. When you want to follow on leads, you activate the lead module, and then we're able to set up when and how that lead will follow up through emails, through SMSs, we can do that. Cron job, this is a login that is set up with the admin when the cron is like an automatic activity that runs in the system when that automatic activity needs to run. So at what point in time do we do our cron activities? When do we do the reminders? When do we do our estimates? And when do we send the proposals to client? Finally, on the setup, we have miscellaneous. That's miscellaneous. We require the client to be logged in to view a contract. Is it yes or no? Just a bit of all the activities that we want to do. What is the size that can be uploaded in media? Whether you can upload 10 MB is the maximum. How many files can you upload on a post? How many? So those are small entities, but once we use them, we can use them to set up the system. A default role is whether we want to have an employee, admin, or accountant. So default role, of course, changes. This is just to, once we set up a role, that it defaults to employee, but we can change and set it up to anyone. If we made changes, anything, we save the settings. So basically what we've done from start to end is we've gotten a client and set up the client from the general point to the end of how the setup of the client. Setup is only done once, and this is normally a function of the admin of the institution. And once the admin has done the setup, everybody aligns to that particular setup. But the setups again can be changed depending on the changes in the organization, and the admin, all he just needs to do is from the menu, he will go to setup, and from setup, he will go to settings, and from settings, he's able to go to any of the settings that they want to change and change that settings from there. So that, in a nutshell, is the first setup of IXL CORE as a system, and now you set up the different parameters for IXL CORE to work and function well. So we've finished the whole setup. So whether it's a new institution, whether it's an internal organization, that is the process of first setting up every of the parameters that we want the system to be able to do, from general all the way to any miscellaneous. But remember, depending on the package you are, some of these things will not be available for you, depending on which package you're utilizing. But since this is a core package that does everything, then that's why we have to go to a detailed level of setup. That, in a nutshell, is how we get started with IXL CORE. Thank you very much.